In this second video in the series, I'm going to show you how I actually stitch together the panels. And you are once again going to need that tapestry needle that has the large eye and the blunt end. And you're going to need some very strong string, waxed linen or linen. I happen to have this incredibly strong acrylic yarn that I've been using, and I've literally stitched all 1,000 story cloths with this. It seems to be breakable. So we're going to cut off a piece that's about the length of your longest story cloth and about another half, so that we have enough. We make sure that we have enough for stitching. Once again, I'm going to lay this piece of yarn over my needle, slide it and pull it through so that I can thread it easily. And you can see that I have 2 story cloths here. I'm just going to bring them right up here for you to see. So I try to line them up so that they're right next to each other. And let me just show, almost no 2 story cloths have come to me with the exact same length, so that's perfectly fine. I love and adore the variety. So I try to lay them out so that they're nice and flat, and I'm going to take a little stitch that's about a 1/2 inch of the weft, and I'm going to tie a knot to leave a little tail, a little double knot there, so that I've just secured the stitching thread onto the story cloth. And then I'm going to go over to the next story cloth, and I'm going to take about a 1/2 inch of a stitch with my needle and begin stitching them together. Now, before I actually stitch, I'm going to give you a little visual. I made this myself. So here's where we've joined, and then we go over to, there's 2 story cloths here. I just want you to see that we're going in a what would you call it? This is like a zipper tooth pattern, not a sharp zigzag, otherwise that'll leave gaps. So this is the pattern that I'm going to be stitching with. So I'm on the one side, and then I go just parallel to where the last stitch was, and I do about a 1/2 inch stitch, and then I go parallel again on the other side. And then pull them nice and tight together. So let me get right up here close. Here's where my thread is coming out. I'm going to just go parallel right from there and take my 1/2 inch stitch. Can you see that? Pull this through and then go directly across from where that thread came out and then pull it through. So I'm just taking little 1/2 inch stitches back and forth. Once again, this is the pattern. Once the thread comes out of one side, you go straight over a parallel and then take a 1/2 inch up and then go straight across. So you continue doing that. Now I just want to say that every story cloth is with different yarns and different weights and different widths and different textures. So as you're stitching, you just want to kind of line them up so that they go together as evenly as possible, because you might have on one side a really thick weaving, and then on the other side you might have something that's a little thinner. People were encouraged to use double threads or textural threads, and so as you're going back and forth, just watch what you're doing and just see if you can keep everything lined up so that they come together in a nice, even way. Okay, I've stitched up these 2 story cloths, and I wanted to just share a couple of different things. One is that because of the different sizes of the story cloths and the different textures, I found in order for the panels to hang well, I didn't always have to go to the very end of the story cloths and stitch them together. So sometimes I did, and sometimes a lot of times actually, I would stop before I got to the very end. And that way, when the story cloths were hanging, this little bit of unstitched story cloth with the fringe on it was able to move, and I like that little bit of movement. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to take this last stitch here. Oops, fell off the needle. There's my last stitch, and I'm going to end this before it gets to the very end. I'm going to end it right here. So I'm just going to stick my needle through, and then I'm going to do a little knot. I'm going to take a stitch. If you sew, this might look familiar. And so we have a little loop, and then I'm going to stick my needle just through the loop and pull tight. And then once again, slide the needle about 1.5 inches into the weaving and pull it through, and then that's where I can cut that end off. All right, so now I'm gonna do the same thing. Remember we had the little tail here at the beginning, and I'm going to weave that through with my tapestry needle and stitch that off as well, or scissors, cut that off, cut it off. All right, so now we have 2 story cloths that are stitched together. And you're just going to continue stitching them however you want. I would get, sometimes during the project, 1 story cloth at a time, and I would just stitch them into the panels as I got them. Other times I would get dozens of story cloths at the same time. And so, for example, in this panel behind me, I could make a conscious choice to put the pink and light pastel ones in the middle, and then went out from there, and then there's some blue ones. And so I paid attention a little bit to the colors that people chose to tell their stories to create my panel. But in the beginning, it was just stitching them together completely randomly and just whenever I got them. So in the next video, I'm going to show you how to create a sleeve on the top of your panel so that you can display it in your community.